This episode is brought to you by Check-In Point. At Check-In Point, we get dance recitals. Check-In Point is your Backstage check-in solution to record which dancers have arrived, track dressing room assignments, communicate with parents, and keep your Backstage area running smoothly. Friends of the Dance Studio 411 podcast can receive 10% off their first-year subscription by using promo code DSO411 when signing up at checkinpoint.com. That's CHECKINPOINTE.com. Promo code DSO411. Say goodbye to recital check-in stress and say hello to Check-In Point.
This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real-life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments. Parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Garrity and Jill Tyrone.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of our Dance Studio 411 podcast. Our guest today is our longtime friend and expert, Joe Naftal. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, Suzanne. Hi, everyone.
We're excited to have you today because, you know, we're always up for innovative ideas here. Our listeners are always looking to stay ahead of the game and also get some new and exciting ideas to help them be more efficient when it comes to running their dance studio, or even just sharing ways to be smarter. So, you know, the topic that you and I decided we'd meet about comes to the recital organization and sort of the backstage management, specifically around recital check-in process, which to many veteran studio owners as well as new ones can seem overwhelming, right?
Absolutely. It's definitely a question I get when we teach our recital seminars all over is how do we make this simpler? And it's, a thing of, there's different ideas on it, but what's really the way we can go forward, simplify this and make it as efficient as possible, especially as studios grow. You can start off with, maybe you're starting off with 20, 30, 50 students. And as your studio grows and you have more students to check in, the thing that doesn't grow is the amount of time you have to do it, right? So once you go from 50 to 100 students, you still have to check them in that same amount of time.
Exactly. And we know as the parent needs continue to become very hands-on, the parents today are very expectant, so to speak, of full transparency into every step of the process of what's happening with their children. And I think that as technology evolves and, we have access to the world at our phone with our phones, parents have they have a need that we need to meet for them that gives them that security when, especially at a dance recital, which can be anywhere from a local high school to a big, in-city theater. So, as you said before, our staff are experts at handling in-studio check, the process of classes, but we'll get everybody off site and it can be really intimidating, right?
Absolutely. We're used to checking in maybe, 20 students at a time for class, but once we put them all together, now we have to kind of amplify that process. And we want it to be a good experience for everyone because, the recital, the performance, I think, starts way before the curtain opens. That parent having a good, and the dancer having a good recital experience, it starts from the moment they walk out of the car to the moment they go back into the car. And, all of that other stuff is all part of the show in a way.
It really is. In fact, I'm writing an article for Dance Teacher Magazine right now about, how do your recital is, it's your report card of the whole season, so to speak. And we put so much loving time and energy, and we put so much creative effort that sometimes it's easy to lose sight of those little tiny details that we think, oh, this is just what we know, it'll work fine. But nowadays it's getting more demanding. And, especially you and I were talking, as you were teaching a lot of your seminar about recital all over the country this past fall for the United Dance Merchants of America events, that every sort of studio faces what you'd call the change of lifestyle. There's a lot of divorced families, right? And custody situations, or maybe complicated situations where parents and the extended family are coming to events. And there are sometimes families that need added security, right?
Absolutely. Anytime you put big families, just like Thanksgiving dinner, once you put a lot of the same family, there's going to, be those issues that come up. There's going to be added tension. And, just that the more you put a lot of parents, a lot of people in, just, the nature of large events is there's going to be more potential conflict, more potential sort of things that could go wrong. So the more we can be proactive in solving those ahead of time, the better.
Exactly.
Better we'll be.
Definitely. And I know the other thing that so many of us are facing is the added concerns for children, especially the amount of allergies and things like peanut allergies to dairy allergies to just, or their own sensitivity to, some children are on the scale of where certain overwhelming situations can cause them to panic. So, we have these documented medical situations for children. How do you you look at that as the studio owner and say, how do I even handle this outside of the studio?
Yeah, and I think, for us as studio owners, like, we know those sort of situations. We know Mrs. So-and-so has, a divorce situation, or Sally and Johnny have a peanut allergy. But when we come into the recital, a big thing with the recital in general is to take that off of the studio owner, take that off of the teachers in a way. We a lot of times have added staff for the recital, added volunteers. So it's figuring out how do we, manage that information pipeline to them as well, so that the studio owner can kind of be freed from every single small scenario and look at, the big picture, which of course is putting on a great show.
Exactly. Or like, I know for us every year, you think, oh, my volunteer staff will know how to handle the stage 5 clinger who's in the screaming and crying and wants mom. And we thought this was going to go really well because at the rehearsal, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden we're backstage and everybody's crowding around this poor kid and trying to calm her down, but that's making it worse. And then suddenly mom gets her mommy instinct and suddenly is peering through the door, and then it's a full-blown situation, right?
Absolutely.
That always happens.
Yep.
You ever have those happen?
Yep, once or twice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so, given that our commitment as studio owners is to do our best work at all times and have a show be great, because like we said, we want to wow these families. It's really important to know what's available nowadays to kind of stay ahead. And so, what I love about you, Joe, is that you are always innovating. You've grown up in this business, as have I, and we've watched our moms run very successful businesses over time. But I would say you and I have watched technology like rapidly change this business in the last 5 to 10 years, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many, new ways to handle age-old problems and new problems.
Exactly. And I know our members look to you for so much insight on the production process, which you and I both also have shared an affinity of what happens behind the curtain. We're not out on stage doing the work of the dancing, but we're definitely behind the stage, making sure all things go smoothly. So when you guys looked at your own studio and you looked at, I'm assuming that you have, just like we described, you have hundreds of students and all these different things. You had a problem to solve, right?
Yep. So at our studio, we have 650 students studio-wide. So they're broken down into 4 shows. So when you divide it down, still we're looking at, 250 to 300 students being checked in at a time. And for us, we want them checked in within a half hour. We tell people if the show is at 7, start dropping them off at 6:30. And of course, we need to be ready to go to start a show at 7. So we don't want them for longer than that, because if you take little kids and they arrive 2 hours early, they're not going to make it to the show. We have that little window of time. And, we don't want to watch them for an extra any more time than we have to. So to say. So we have to kind of try to keep that down to a small amount of time. And with all that information, in order for us to have that many students checked in at a time, we have to be able to get them information. We need to be able to let them know, so-and-so has a peanut allergy. So make sure that, they have their inhaler or their EpiPen if they need that for whatever they need. We're able to let them know about certain parental sort of issues. And we also wanted a way to really document who's going in and out of backstage at a specific time, so that, if a parent comes and says, oh, my kid was dropped off already, where are they? We have an answer to that, right? You don't want to ever be in that situation where you're going, I don't know. That's the last thing a parent wants to hear, and that's the last thing you want to tell them. So over the course of a number of years, we looked at how do we structure this to be as organized and efficient as possible. And that's kind of what led us to where we are right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, we did the touchy subject, which not everybody knows how to handle in the easiest of ways, but it's that unpaid balance, the parent who's shown up and is about to sit down and, they're carrying a huge balance. How do you guys handle that?
Absolutely. So of course, best case scenario is to handle that before you get to the recital. That's right. Always going to be the best option. So with us, we link that to picking up the costume, so that we try and have the least amount of awkwardness or dealing with that at the recital. Every so often it will come where we'll make, that certain deal where we'll say, okay, we'll give you the costume, but it needs to be paid by, the time they're going to show up for the show. And then we're able to notate that for our check-in staff so they know about that upon check-in, send them to this specific person to handle that. So it doesn't become, some random volunteer, accepting cash or something like that.
Exactly. And, I think the other thing that we face as studio owners, and this is what we talked about, like, not that we are in a litigious society, right? But we have to make sure we're covering our bases when it comes to like participation waivers and all of that stuff. When you go off-site, how does that usually work with your studio?
Sure. So for us, the big one was earring waivers. So like a lot of studios.
Say more about that.
Yeah. So our thing is we don't allow anyone to come with jewelry to the recital. That's one of our rules. We don't want, caught on the earring and ripping on a sequin. We've seen that happen. Not pretty.
No.
Definitely, we don't want blood on costumes. We don't want any of that. It never ends well. So we tell them, of course, not allowed to do that. With that being said, we, of course, have parents that show up. Their children's ears are freshly pierced. They're, not able to take them out. So, our thing is they have to sign an additional waiver letting us know that they were advised of our concerns on that. They've chosen to ignore that or go ahead anyway, and that they're releasing us from liability from that decision. So again, that used to be a binder that they signed into. And, for us, it's really been figuring out how do we make that as quick as possible, because, we don't have time to go get the binder and fill out the form and do all of that. It needs to be a 1, 2, 3 sort of process.
Right. Who knew the earrings would be the thing?
Yep.
But, it says on your cup of coffee, caution, contents may be hot. There is a reason why somebody had to print that on a mug. So, the obvious stuff to us may not be so obvious. And it's, I'm sure someone would come and say, oh, these are heirloom earrings from grandma and she had them for 100 years and we just want to wear them for the show. So, you're not responsible for lost or stolen earrings. It's true, and then of course, I don't know about you, but at our recital venue, we use a performing arts school. And so we have kids changing in the chorus room, or there's dressing rooms in the band room. And the parents are like, what is the band room? Where do we go? So, they don't know where to go. So I'm sure you've had to deal with this complexity of dressing rooms, right?
Yeah, and there's so many different ways that studios have dressing rooms. Are you going to do it by the number of dances? Are you going to have a quick change room versus a regular changing room? Are you going to split them up based on what class they're in? What if they're in more than one class? Where are they dressing and where are you holding them? And of course, even if you sent that in an email and even if you sent that out, the parent's going to show up with their garment bag and go, where do I go?
Right, exactly. Because it's like, we know as using this space, like just go there and it's easy to just do a lot of this point with your fingers and everyone should just follow. And suddenly you're like a swarm of people are following you because you're the only one who knows where everything's happening and where everything's going. So that's the problem. We really want to help our listeners. We want you guys to avoid that, because wouldn't it be nice to just kind of sit back and actually enjoy the show?
Absolutely. So that kind of brings us to what we did to sort of solve that. We solved it a couple ways. We've solved it with, having, a single queue that breaks off to different sort of check-in areas. We've solved it with really clear signage. That's, big thing is like, sort of that C-spot run, sort of making everything as simple. But, I'm a huge, advocate for signage. We label everything, arrows going everywhere. And then the other thing we've done is we've done postcards for parents. So all of those sort of things they have to know that they didn't read in an email over the last 3 months, we basically have on a postcard. We have a lot of bilingual customers. So we have it in English and Spanish on both sides.
Oh, that's cool.
And it at least has, the bullets, which is like, when you sign your child in, this is who can pick them up. This is when you're going to pick them up. This is, are they allowed to go to intermission or are they not allowed to go to intermission? All of the sort of rules of how they're going to be taken care of. So at least, they'll read that on their way to their seat. So if they've read nothing all year, read that one postcard.
That's a good tip. I like that a lot. So you guys you created in, say, like a graphic design program, something as simple as Canva is free or whatever you use, and then you print those up. It's bilingual. Very cool that you do that. And then they have that on a little takeaway when they've arrived.
Yep. Everything they have to know, anything they would, be coming back and fighting with us that they didn't know about, at least we have it on the postcard. They definitely knew about it. So we have that. Oh. And then brings us to sort of check-in point, which is started for me as sort of a pet project. I was like, we need a way to make this better. So I was looking out there for software and how to make it better. I was looking at different sort of, things. And I found like visitor management sort of software for big businesses. And I was like, that's not it. And I found, church check-in for daycare. And I was like, it's really expensive. Like, that's not it either. So I finally, like, one day I sat down and I was like, I'm going to make a system that's better than this. And I'm going to, at least for me and for my health and for my purposes, we're going to make something that's better. So I developed Check-in Point as a way to sort of check students in, check them out, and keep everything really organized. And from there, we're able to alert our check-in staff of specifically, a dressing room to assign each kid to, where they need to go. We're able to give them notes on, okay, this person has a allergy, make sure they have their EpiPen. This person has a balance, send them to Miss So-and-so who handles accounts. Someone's really sick, we have to respace the opening number, send them backstage right away when they come in. It really to kind of replace all those Post-it notes that were sitting out by all the check-in staff.
Yeah, I love that, Joe. And that's what, you've really innovated in this industry because you've had your own pain points you've had to work through at your studio. And to your point, as we aim to grow, we can't grow the amount of time before the show. We want to expedite that. So Check-in Point is awesome. And I know our listeners, we're going to give them the website to go to, but I love that you named it Check, CHECK-IN, and then Point, POINTE, which is awesome little play on words. And so what's cool about this is you've customized it for what we face as an industry for dance studios and dancers. But is it technology that, if you have volunteer staff, it's fairly easy for them to use?
Yeah, so that was really the thing that I set out when developing this, is that it needs to be fast so we can get the check-in done as quickly as possible. And it needs to be something simple enough that we can just basically put in front of a volunteer and either give them no training or give them very minimal training and then being able to sort of use it. So in developing it, the thing that I did is I gave it to all of our volunteers and staff. And I said, I'm not going to teach you how to use this. I'm standing by when you get lost, but we're going to give you no sort of instruction. I want to see, and I was able to learn from that. I was able to be like, oh, they clicked to this button and they thought it would do this. They're right. It needs to do that. Or, so, within our year of kind of testing it and beta testing it at our studio, we've been able to sort of learn how to put it in front of a volunteer and have them use it with no sort of onboarding process.
That's awesome. So the parents must feel like this is the confidence we want to give the parents, right? So part of the parent is the consumer to most of our dance business. We have children are the student, the parent is the customer. They want to feel really confident, especially, like I said, these changing needs of parents, that 100% of the time kids are safe, because we do live in an environment of life where it has been, our children are trained to do lockdown drills and they are very much aware of the world they live in, as we should be aware. Does this also gives an added level of, I guess I don't want to call it it's wrong to say it gives you security, but it gives you an accountability for all people should there be any sort of a situation, correct?
Absolutely. So a little bit, I guess, about the customer process and what it looks like from them checking in. When they arrive, they're able to give our check-in staff their name. And instead of, it used to be that we were flipping through like 20 different pages to find their last name, or maybe the kid has a different last name than the parent, and that was a whole thing trying to find it. We're able to just type in their name really quickly instead of searching for it. From there, they get checked in. When they get checked in, it timestamps specifically when they're checked in. So it'll say it's June 1st at 7:42 p.m. Exactly, down to the second that they were checked in. It then pops up any alerts that are on their account. So if they have like those alerts we talked about with medical alerts, stuff like that, it alerts them about that. The check-in staff. It alerts them what dressing room to assign them to. And then lastly, to give that parent an extra sort of peace of mind, it sends the parent a text message saying, from the studio, so-and-so was checked in backstage, enjoy the show. And then on the flip side, when they get checked out, it sends them a message again saying so-and-so is checked out. So they get that added peace of mind that everything's organized, we know where their kid is at all times, and that they can kind of go, enjoy the show, and not worry about it.
It's awesome. I mean, this is so cool. So I know we're going to give them a link. You have a demo option, right? People can go and check this out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, seeing is believing. The best way is to, play with it yourself, see how it works for your studio. So you can absolutely go on and sign up for a demo to, play with it and try it out.
Cool. So they go to checkinpoint, POINTE.com. So it's CHECKINPOINTE.com.
Yep. And then you can just sign up there for a demo. And if you like it, you just sign up from there. And we have a special promo for your listeners and friends of the podcast as well. If they type in code DSO411, DSO411, they get 10% off their first year subscription.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's worth it. I mean, for a very low fee, you can have a lot of peace of mind. And that's why we love having you on the podcast, because it's, this is the technology that people will ask us, how do I make my business more efficient and do things for me without me having to have more people? This is like multiplying your eyes and ears without having to hire more people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool. And so I'm assuming that some of the needs for the use of this would obviously be a Wi-Fi connection or internet at an event.
Sure. So either we'd recommend you go with Wi-Fi, and almost any venue you go into, if you just ask for it, like a school is going to be set up for Wi-Fi, a theater is going to be set up for Wi-Fi, or you could use a cellular connection. So if you have an iPad or an Android tablet that has a cellular connection to it, you could use that as well.
Cool. And then so on the front end, probably the little bit of legwork, and I'm sure when you do the demo, it talks about that. Does the studio owner import their own data into the program?
Yep. So there's two ways to add dancers. There's I call it the manual way, or the one at a time. You click add dancer, put in all their info and hit save, but that's going to be time consuming if you have, a lot. So you can just import an Excel sheet. So you go into whatever your studio management software is, export out the information that you want, and then you just import that right into Check-in Point, and it puts it into all the right fields for you. Right.
You map the field. So if it's like allergy, you put an allergy in that field. Yep. That's cool.
Exactly.
Good. I like it. So that's awesome. I mean, I know that I'm excited about this. I think that it's a game changer for all of us who are really focused on how do we become more efficient, take our recital sign-in process to the next level, as you said. And it's that security, and it helps the dancer, it helps the parent, it helps your volunteers, and it most importantly helps you, the studio owner, because ultimately I really do want you guys to be able to, even if you can only sneak a few peeks from the wings, be able to go enjoy the fruit of all the hard work that was this year. I mean, this is the stuff that you've worked so hard for, that there's a moment when you can maybe sneak out. My favorite spot in the theater is the back row, is where you can hide out there and just see all the beautiful moments you're creating. And so, Joe, thank you so much for coming up with the solution to a really important problem.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it. If only for my studio, happy to have the solutions.
That's awesome. Well, you're a great source of insight and ideas for our members and, our listeners, and of course, all the teachers and studio owners you meet. So until next time, thanks for being our special guest here on the Dance Studio 411.
All right. Thanks, Suzanne.
This episode is brought to you by Check-in Point. At Check-in Point, we get dance recitals. Check-in Point is your Backstage check-in solution to record which dancers have arrived, track dressing room assignments, communicate with parents, and keep your Backstage area running smoothly. Friends of the Dance Studio 411 podcast can receive 10% off their first year subscription by using promo code DSO411 when signing up at checkinpoint.com. That's CHECKINPOINTE.com. Promo code DSO411. Say goodbye to recital check-in stress and say hello to Check-in Point.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.